yesterday, went back to the flower farm. Do you remember I went a couple of days ago, well, a couple of weeks ago I should say, and I showed you how to condition your flowers, home pick flowers, whether you've grown them or you've gone to a flower farm like me, and then how to make a really beautiful arrangement on a pedestal. Well, today I'm going to show you how to make a tied bouquet using, well, not the same, but similar flowers. Now, if you love flower arranging, crafting, and all things charity shop too, I would love it if you would join my free Facebook group, Flower Start World. You'll find a link to that in the description underneath this video. And it's places where you can show me your great charity shop finds, whether you've been crafting, give me some ideas, or whether you just want to show off about your latest flower arrangements. So the first thing I'm going to do is to take these flowers out of the bucket, and they have been conditioning overnight. Basically that means I had them sitting in their bucket of water in the cool of my workshop overnight. And the first thing I like to do when I'm making a hand-tied bouquet is, number one, have a pair of scissors. I'm going to put those in my pocket, so let me know where they are when I struggle to find them later. You'll also need a piece of string, which I'm going to put in my other pocket. And what I'm going to do is to take all the flowers out of the bucket and lay them out, like with like. And as I do that, see how many of the flowers you can name. There's the water dripping off the stems. So being really, really gentle with what I've got. Perhaps I should turn them around and you can see more clearly what flowers I've got to work with today. So, easy one first, but it's an interesting variety. You'll recognise that if you watch my other video about the flower farm. And then these beautiful grasses, they'll give a little bit of lightness and movement. And just look at the length on those dahlias. So I cut these differently. In my garden, I only cut short dahlias from here to here because I want these buds to develop into other flowers. But because I was at the flower farm, I wanted length. So I cut them really long. And there you can see how I've conditioned them by plunging them into some hot water and then into the cool water to drink. There you've got lots of different colours of the dahlia. Again, be careful not to bash them. So I'm making this bouquet as a gift. So I've tried to choose flowers that have got plenty of life in them, but also have got sufficient colour that it doesn't look like I'm just handing over a bouquet of buds. So it's that happy medium. Nice sort of zingy zinnias. And then the straw flowers. So from the arrangement I made for my first set of flowers from the flower farm, I've only got the zinnias left, which I've put in a little basket. I've got a basket hanging down from the peg rail in my kitchen. That's where all my odds and ends of dried stuff goes. So I've got some poppy seed heads, some lavender from the garden, and now I've got some of the straw flowers as well. Helichrysum, if you're looking to buy seeds for that. More sunflowers. I've chosen smaller headed varieties so they don't overpower the arrangement, and trying to get them on a long stem, but a stem that wasn't too thick as well. I don't want them to be too cumbersome to arrange. I did buy this. I think this might be some sort of flowering mint. I was so excited to see it and see whether it had a scent. I'm not sure whether it is mint or not. I haven't got a very good sense of smell, but I think although they're nice and bushy pieces, they're not going to work for this bouquet because there's no length in the stem. So I'm going to put those back in the bucket and I can enjoy those another time. And then the spike flower, I don't know the name of that. Perhaps you do. Let me know in the comments. I want to get, oh, another flower, but this time with sort of peachy autumnal tones to it. That's the last of the dahlias. One more zinnia, and then the rest of the bouquet, all the flowers I picked, are cosmos. So we've got a white variety. This one is sort of cup shaped. Actually, I'm wondering whether it's called cupcake. I don't know, but it's sort of, it's almost like it's got a fairy cake, paper cake liner around the outside that's slightly ridged, and then the fluff of the petals inside. And then I've got a peachy variety too, and each of those petals are sort of turned in on themselves, almost to create like little trumpet heads. You can imagine a bee going up there. So let me see if I can adjust the camera angle as I trip over my bucket. Which angle would you prefer to see me working at? I wonder whether that will give you the best view. You don't need to be seeing my face, but I do want to have a little bit of clear space over here so you can see the flowers. So where do we start? You'll see that as I conditioned the flowers, I stripped off lots of the lower stems, because when you're making a hand-tied bouquet, you want the stems to be clean underneath your binding point, and your binding point is where the piece of string will tie off your flowers, but it's also where you're going to hold the flowers. Now I'm imagining a lovely sort of very informal, looks like I've just picked it from the garden, effortless look. Not sure, I think you might prefer that angle. So I'm just deciding here whether I've taken enough of the flower off. I've actually got more of the stem, the flowering stem, above my hand than I have below. I'm just tempted to pull off these bits, and I'll make use of that bucket that I tripped over. So, look at that. So what I'm doing is, I'm right-handed. My right hand is here. This is my left hand. I'm going to use my left hand as a vase. You may need to warm up your hand first and do a few stretches, because you might find this hand starts to ache. So I'm going to pick up my flower with my dominant hand and put it into the vase. And what I'm doing is trying to not grip on, because you might, you're going to have an ache up your shoulder, and if you're too heavy-handed, your flower stem's going to break. So what I tend to do is just sort of pinch them in place by moving my thumb away, like that. I might start off just to get myself going with a few stems, and all the time I'm putting the stems in at the same angle. There's sort of a space there, and they're going in at an angle. That space will disappear as you twist. But when you come to put the next stem in, you do it at the same angle, and then you've got that little bit of space. Like that. So I've got 3 stems there, so you'll start to see this sort of wigwam, this triangle of stems, and that is the characteristic of the hand-tied bouquet, is you have all the fluff of flower up here and all the stems out here, and if you were to turn it sideways and sort of draw a line around it, it looks a very bit like an angular figure 8, or perhaps a bow tie, and that's what we're going to do. So I've divided out all my flowers, and I'm going to work my way down a conveyor belt and pick up each individual flower. Now I did think I would have these really, as I said before, really loose and blousy, but I'm just thinking, again this zinnia, if I was cutting it from my garden, I would just have cut the flower off on its own, which it would have been from here to here, because I'd want these buds to develop, because I wanted the length hand-tied. I'm sacrificing those buds. Well, if it was growing from my garden, obviously the flower farmer just wants me to cut and be happy. So I did take a very long length, the same thing, put it into my hand, and twist. You don't need to twist all the time, it's just a good practice to get used to the technique. So it looks like I'm going to have to pinch off the lower leaves of all my flowers. So I might go around this. You might find that if you've got really delicate flowers or small stem flowers, you might want to put 2 or 3 stems in at once instead of putting just one flower in at a time. I'm just thinking a little bit about my sunflowers, whether they're going to be too big. And what I did with the sunflowers, not only did I take off the leaves that were below the binding point, I also took off some of the leaves near the head because they can be very large. So that leaf there looks quite large, but was the smallest leaf on the stem. So here again, look, I've got these lovely, I need scissors, where did I put them? Buds, they're never going to come out. And I don't want them to be, vulnerable to being knocked and spoiling my bouquet. So, like that. And you can see here, if I stand back, that I've got 1, 2, 3, so it's working in threes again. You don't have to do that. And in fact, what I think I'm going to do is to leave that sunflower out for the moment. It's got too exaggerated an arch, and it's not one of those flowers where you can prop it up with other flowers underneath. So my bouquet is intended to be round, but you don't have to keep doing things in threes. If you've ever been to flower arranging college, trained to be a florist, you may well have been trained to do it in threes, but we're not doing anything for college, so we don't need to do that. I might see whether my teddy bear sunflower would fit in there. So again, do you see what I mean about the larger leaves? They're just too big and they're getting in the way. So I might want some leaf, but I don't want it to be, dominating what's going on. So if I decide when I finish my bouquet there's too many leaves around those sunflowers, I may well go in and cut them off. Right, next down the production line is some of the straw flower. Okay, I need to get rid of a bit more of the stem there. That. And I've gone around first of all with all my pinkish straw flowers, and because I've got used the pink first, the colour then, well, I was going to say it's been evenly distributed, but has it? I've got one here, and I was going to go in there, but what I'm going to do is just shuffle my bouquet around a bit till I get to the gap. I don't want them necessarily having all the pink ones together. I'm trying to get them to be evenly distributed. And I'm trying also to keep everything exaggerated along, because the participant has got two options when they get them. They could just recut the strands and put them in a vase, but they might want to, especially if they enjoy flowers and arranging flowers, they might want to undo the string and then use the flowers to create another arrangement. So you want that to be quite long. So I'm going to go in with my spiky purples. So adding in a different shape. So I've got the round form of the sunflower. I've got a spike of that flower there that I don't know the name of. And I've got, as you can see, a polychromatic design. There are lots of colours going on, clashing, but that is exactly what you would imagine, an English country cottage garden looking like at the moment. So I've got quite a lot of stems, and my hand doesn't ache because I'm really nice and loose. So dahlias next. Dahlias can be difficult. Do you see how that flower there is not on the top of the stem like the zinnia? It just rests on top. It's facing forwards. But if you're really clever, you can sort of hook that head over something else and just let it come up a little bit. I'm going to leave that one for later. I've seen a video of a flower arranger or florist wiring their dahlias. Up to you whether you want to wire it, but the whole point of looking like a bunch of flowers that came from Grandad's garden is that you want to fiddle with them as little as possible. And I just think that having wires up your flowers isn't a good look. And of course it's time consuming, and you run the risk that you might break your stems. So dahlias have gone round. So now I'm back to the beginning with my flowers. More cosmos. And I might, if we want to speed things up a bit, I could add a couple of stems of cosmos in the time. I just need to take a bit of that fluffy green off. Put them there. So there tends to be this light blousy flower. I've got the receding colour of the dahlia. You can barely see there against my stripy top. You can see how the yellow is showing up, and then this daintiness. And we talk lots of flower arranging. Oh, I can see something that's not quite right here. about the focal flower, the in-between transitional flowers, and then there's finer filler flowers. My dahlia is obscuring my sunflower, and I don't want that to happen. So what am I going to do? I'm going to release the hold. I'm going to loosen the hold on my flowers, and with my hand here, wriggle that stem out, and then I can let everything settle again and put that in somewhere else. It's clearly, you know, you can see it's right, there's the back, there's the side, and there's the front. It's just like a lamp showing in, you know, shining in the darkness. I want you to see me. So I'm going to have to just accept that. Get rid of those leaves. They're being tangled. I'm just going to, no, it's next to that one. I don't want it to be next to that dahlia. I want them to be in here where there's a little bit of a gap. Like that. So now you can see every flower. Right then, back to those cosmos. I'm trying to be daring. Instead of making something neat and petite, imagine this, you know, really being shown off in a vase. Perhaps I've got my kitchen table here, a little bit different if you are a regular viewer. I've swapped out my tables. I'm now using my kitchen table as my office desk. And my office desk, aka the dining table, is around and it's in the kitchen. The more you add in, the slightly heavier the arrangement becomes, and the slightly more careful you have to be as you roll everything around, as you twist. You don't want to be knocking into yourself. But what do you think? It's not intended to be a neat petite circle. It's just what I'm doing is giving my flowers a real slimline waist. So when I tie them up, they'll be secure, and I'll be able to get much more in my hand than I would have been able to get if I just, you know, gather them together. Well, you can see how big they would have been when I showed you the bucket of flowers. It was just a big mass of flower, and you would have, if you were going to do a cut and plonk into the vase, you would have needed a vase that had a mouth to it that was as big as the bucket. But this way, everything is constrained into that binding point, my tying point, and then the stems splay out. And if you look really closely, you can see that because I'm putting the flowers in the same direction each time, but the stems are sort of interlocking into place, and it would feel different if you suddenly started putting the flowers in from the other direction. So whatever direction you choose, whether you want to go on this side or across that side, you need to just keep doing it all the time. So, and you carry on until, I've forgotten about the fountain grass here, until you've run out of materials or you feel that your hand can't hold much more. So fountain grass, so named because it looks like a fountain. It's quite jointed. It's a bit like a carnation stem. So if you wanted to pull off the sides, the side shoots were there getting in the way. If you do it by hand, you run the risk that you're going to break the stems. So I need to remember to get that bare grass in because it's quite delicate. I'm going to get, I think I've got 3, might have 4 stems. And then what I like to do usually, if you've got a choice, is to put some more robust stems on the outer edge so that when you tie the string to tie off, you are tying it, you're not going to bruise the stems. Now your flowers will move around a little bit as you twist and turn. So do you remember I showed you the sunflowers? 1 sunflower there, and then 2 and 3, and 2 and 3 have become scrunched together. So I need to make a decision. We're holding it far away. Is that giving me a pleasant focal point, or does it look like the flowers have been crushed into the same position? So I'm tempted to separate out a little bit. So what I might want to do, again, loosen my hold. And how easy is it going to be to gently twist that stem out? Oh, how easy is it? Because I've cut off the leaves, the knobbly point that's been left by that growing point is just causing a blockage. So can I find, oh, it's quite a tough sound. Well, let's not do that one. What I might do to separate them is actually to loosen my hold and see if I can position a flower between them. So I have got another dahlia. Let's loosen the hold and let's do the action in reverse. Get down to the twine point where you've got all that crisscross of stems, and I'm sort of corkscrewing it in. So corkscrew that down, and then as I push it down, I can see which stem it is, and I can just give that a little bit, gentle, gentle, gentle down, and it's stuck there. It's locked in place, I should say, not that it's stuck, because I have the two branch flowers coming from the side. But what that's given me, as I quite like that, it's given me just a little bit of a raised area. And then when I hold the flowers that way, if you're going to put the flowers into a vase, maybe a low table, you might be looking from the top. It's just separated out those two more dominant flowers. But looking good, isn't it? Starting to feel a little bit weighty. Do I need to, should I be adding in any more? I quite like, I've got the yellow straw flower as well. I picked that because I thought it talked to the yellow sunflowers. So it's quite nice to get a little bit of a colour story going. It is multicoloured. But, I was mindful of what I was putting in. I don't want any leaves below the binding point, because that's what's going to go in the vase, and leaves will rot off in the water and hasten the decline of flowers. But also, if you include leaves in your binding point, it adds extra bulk, and again they're going to wear away and create a wound and shorten the life of the flowers. So that helichrysum was curling off. Reminds me about that sunflower I've got. Perhaps on the outer edge I could bring in the sunflower, and then it doesn't look quite as if it, it looks more intentional. It's coming off there. Now I am really starting to, I'm struggling. I could put more flowers in. I'm just wondering, I'm just going to put that sunflower in. Oh, I was going to put it in there, but it's right underneath that other one. So I might just, sometimes handy if you are doing your arranging in front of a mirror and you can really have a look. So that's a slightly shorter stem. I'm going to put that underneath. But what I'm aiming for here is a slight arching quality of the top. If you start putting lots of short flowers in, it actually creates more of a spherical shape, like a hot air balloon, and it sort of comes, it comes into the sort of dead space underneath the vase. You really want to have a bit of flow and elongation. So although I've used that, I wanted to use that little sunflower up, I might just add in a little bit of the cosmos underneath it. So you see the flower, but the width of the arrangement has been visually extended. So I've put something in that side. Perhaps I ought also to put another little bit of a flow over that side as well, and by coincidence it's another sunflower there. It just means that the arrangement tapers out. It's not sort of suddenly coming to a full stop because you've got a large flower that's squaring off the arrangement. So what do you reckon? It almost looks quite bridal. If these had been in bridal colours or whites or the really high contrast of the yellows, oranges and blues that seem to be popular at the moment. And it was shorter stems, it looks quite bridal. And now I'm looking at my flowers, look. I've manhandled them, and the zinnia has disappeared. So I can take that out. Do I need to try and replace another flower in? What I would say, for me looking down, that leaf on that sunflower is very dominant. I might just go in with my scissors and cut that single leaf off, and that is opening up and revealing the problematic dahlia from before, but that dahlia has sunk down a little bit, so I'm going to sort of go in with my fingers like that and just sort of get underneath the flower and underneath the head and just ease it up a bit. As long as all the stem's going to be in water, you can still lift your flowers. You don't want to lift it so much that the flowers are so short they're never going to get into the vase. But equally, as you're moving the arrangement around, some things do sink a little bit. So next job is to find that string that I had earlier, and here it is. So the way I like to do this is to catch it under my fingers and then carefully going around the top of my fist there, slowly going round the top, not catching any leaves, not catching any flowers. So I've gone a complete circle, and then I'm going to lie it on the table gently. And you can't see this very well. I've got my 2 bits of string here, and I'm going to cross them and tie them in a knot. So I tie it tightly, but not so tightly that I am pinching off all the flower heads, but not so loosely that when I pick it up, if you've tied it too loosely, everything relaxes. Can you see it's a bit loose? Everything's relaxed and sort of you end up with a bit of a hole. So I do need to go in a little bit firmer. So if you've tied your knot too loosely but you can't untie it, you could always get another bit of string. So let's see whether I can just gently but firmly, bit tighter. And then you cut off the excess. And there you have it, a lovely tied bouquet. Now the thing I am going to do that's still causing me a problem there, I think I need to get a little bit of string off camera. You've got all these stems all over the place. So what I'm going to do is give myself at least 2 handholds and cut the stems, cut the length, the excess length off. And then I will put this back in the bucket. I think it's going to be presented in a vase, so I don't need to wrap it, but there's plenty of videos on my channel that you can find if you want to learn how to wrap your flowers. So there you have a beautiful hand-tied bouquet, just picked from the garden. So, what does it look like? Fabulous, as I'm sure you agree. I need more string on there because it's falling apart a bit. Let me see whether I can find another bit of string in the kitchen drawer and get this tied off really tightly. So a little bit of string. It was probably from the same flower farm. So let's try a different way. Make a loop, cut ends together. I'm doing the loop underneath. I think I just needed to do a few more backwards and forwards. So I've gone through the loop, so I've threaded it through the eye, and then going to separate out the threads, give them a good pull. This is firmer. I was being too mean with that piece of string earlier. So I've gone backwards and forwards. So just twice, I've gone 3 or 4 times. So I'm confident now. I am so confident that I'm actually going to cut my string ends shorter because I don't need those little excess bits now. And yes, with absolute confidence, I can say that that is well and truly tightly tied. And there, I shall leave it for you to enjoy. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again next time. Don't fall over.